Okay, good day. Today, going to be installing NetBox, latest version, which is 2.9.9, into Ubuntu server, which is currently 20.04.1 LTS. Starting with a brand new server, so nothing else running inside it. I've already run all the updates, so everything should be ready to go. And I'm going to be following the official documentation for this. So if there's some steps in there that don't quite make sense, or possibly you know a better way to go about them, by all means do that. But since we are going by the instructions that they provided, for the most part, we're going to tweak it a little bit down the road. That's what we're going to be doing. So we'll start with the first thing that we need, which is going to be our database. That is postgresql. So first thing we're going to do is switch over to the root user. Again, following their instructions. And get postgresql downloaded. So I'm going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting, and you'll find everything that I'm copying and pasting in the comments down below on this video. So that's really just to make sure that I don't typo too much as we're going through this process. So we'll let Postgres finish up here. And when that finishes up, we're going to jump into Postgres. We're going to create a new database, which we will be calling NetBox. We're going to create a user with a password. I'm going to paste in a password. If you go to my copy and paste, you'll see there is no password there, but a placeholder. So make sure you put in your own password. And then we're going to be granting that new user the privileges to work on the new database. So our install has finished. Let's jump in. We will create the database named NetBox. Create database. Create the user with our password. You can see down here, create role. Then we're going to grant all privileges on that database to that user. And you see down here, it says grant. Go ahead and quit out of Postgres. Also going to do a quick test here just to make sure that it's working. So this command here will say, let's connect to that NetBox database running on the local host using the account we just created. And we'll copy and paste in that password. And there we go. You can see earlier it was showing Postgres up here. And now we're showing NetBox. So we are good from a database standpoint. Next, we'll install Redus. And Redus is a database communication caching program. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what it does or why it's used on the back end. You can do a lot of different readings on that. You'll find a lot of people talking about where you use it, what you use it, what it's for. But again, we're not getting into that. So you can see that we installed it. And this is the command right here that I typed in to make sure that it's working. redis-cli-space ping, and we'll get back a pong. Pong means we're good. All right, next few things we're going to install. We've got a lot of packages here that are used really just for making sure that NetBox has what it needs to build itself. Once we get into the NetBox install, it has its own set of requirements that will install at that point in time, and that's really just to build the application. So right now what we're doing is giving the application what it needs in order to be able to build itself. So there's a lot of Python things in there, pips in there. We've got Python virtual environments, a couple other tools in there. We're actually going to interact with the Python virtual environment a little bit later on. But again, this is what we need to even get the installer going. So we'll let this guy finish up. shouldn't take too long. There we go. Back to our prompt. We'll make sure that pip is up to date. There we go. All right, next step is to download the most up-to-date version of the NetBox code. They host that on GitHub, so you can see, finished downloading for us. Now we're going to decompress that folder into our opt directory. Then we're going to create a symlink to that from that folder that it decompressed with the 2.9.9 version to opt/netbox. Now we need to create a NetBox user and adjust the rights on this media directory. There we go. All right, now we're going to get into actually configuring NetBox. So the first thing we're going to do is take a copy of the provided configuration. You can see it's configuration.example.py, and we'll make a copy and name it configuration.py. I find that it's easier to make a copy of the provided configuration, so you always have a template to go back to that's based on the box. You could always go to GitHub and look it up, but I like to keep a local copy, so that's a good way to keep a local copy. So before we jump in to the configuration, there's a few things that we're going to need. We're going to need that username and database, the database username, and the password that we made. You should already have those three. The fourth thing that we're going to need is a secret key. Now, that secret key isn't something that you do a whole lot with, but NetBox uses that as the string to salt anything that it needs to store in there. So if you're storing enable secrets or other accounts, usernames and passwords, it's going to do an encryption, and it uses that secret key to do your encryption. So they recommend that it be a 50-character long key. If you don't want to come up with something that is 50 characters long, there is an included Python script in here, which we can run. It will generate that string for us. We're also going to need to know the IP address of the machine. Hopefully you have that already, as well as what you intend to call the machine, like what you want to enter into your browser bar to access it. So we'll grab our machine IP real quick. And with that information, we'll jump into the configuration. So the first thing we need to configure here is our allowed hosts. This is where knowing your IP address and name will come in handy. So we'll fill that in. I also know I want to call it netbox.lan. You can, if you're not sure what it's going to be called here, or you're just kind of playing around, inside of one of those quotes, you can just put an asterisk, put in a wildcard. It's a bit of a shortcut, but it can work. Now we'll configure the database. My password from earlier. And then down here, you see we'll have the secret key. And I will paste in our secret key from earlier. Let's paste it into the right place. There we go. So there's a lot of other things inside the configuration file. Once you get into Napalm, which I won't be doing in this video, plugins, I'll be doing that in a different video. There's a lot of different things that you can configure in here, but just getting NetBox off the ground, those are the only things that we need to configure. So we'll go ahead and save, Control X, save the modified buffer, yes please, and done. All right, we've got our configuration in place, we've got our prerequisites in place, so next thing we're going to do is start the actual install process. So regardless of if you're installing new or upgrading, they have you run the upgrade script. That's kind of nice that it's all in one. Kick that guy off. So I won't be going into an upgrade through this video because we are installing it new. I do intend to do an upgrade specific video down the road a little bit. Since I'm installing on the newest version, 2.9.9, I'll be waiting until he comes out with either 2.9.10. I believe I saw that there's a 2.10 beta. I don't want to jump to that just yet because it is beta code. But we will be doing upgrade videos down the road. So you can see as it's running through our list here, it's pulling in all the prerequisites that it needs. It's applying the database transformations. It's building out that Python virtual environments, everything that we need to get NetBox up and running. Once it's done, we're going to jump into that Python virtual environment and create a super user, and also going to set up a test web server just so we can make sure that the application works, that our first user works, that we've got something to build off of. All right, there we go. So we have some warnings in here reminding us to restart some services. We don't really need to worry about that right now since we don't even have the services in place yet since we're still building. So we will jump in to the Python virtual environments. I'm going to switch our directory back and create our super user, our first user. Call him admin. Email doesn't matter much right now. All right, we have our super user, and now we're going to use the built-in Python web server to stand it up. All right, so you can see we have it running here. It's listening on 0.0.0.0, so all of its interfaces on port 8000. And there we go. 2.9.9. We'll log in using admin. Perfect. So you can see we're in. We have a blank environment. All these lines are zeros, showing that there's nothing inside them. We'll create a basic site real quick. We'll just call it headquarters or HQ for short. So that way later on, when we jump in and see that we have our headquarters site in here, we'll know that we're accessing the same data. All right, so in the backgrounds, you can see all the different calls that were going, all the gets and posts from that basic web server. So we're definitely doing good. All right, we'll hit Control-C to close down the web server. All right. Now, to get that running, you saw what we had to do. I guess you don't absolutely have to drop into the to the virtual environment to stand up the temporary web server, but we need to start setting up all of the applications around NetBox that make it function. We need to create the services. So the first application that we're going to set up in here, or at least the next step in setting this up, is going to be to configure Gunicorn. There are other ways to accomplish this without Gunicorn, and this is one of those places where if you know what Gunicorn is, you know WSGI applications a little bit better, you can use whatever application that you're more familiar with. But since we're sticking to the instructions and we're getting just this application working on this one server, we're going to be sticking with that. The configuration, like so many of the other parts, is relatively straightforward because they have boilerplate in there for us to use. So we'll stick with that for Gunicorn. Next, we need to actually set up our NetBox services. And again, thankfully, they give us some base code to work off of, which is good enough for our needs. So we'll copy those guys over. Reload our daemon. Start the NetBox and NetBox RQ services. Enable them. And after you've done that, you should be able to run this status command for NetBox. And as long as we get the active running green text here, it may not be green depending on how your terminal's set up, but as long as under active you see active, loaded is loaded, we see everything else that it is running, we are good to go. Next step is going to be setting up a web server, a dedicated web server, so it's always there. We're going to be using Nginx. You can also use Apache too. There's different instructions for Apache because they are very different web servers. The first thing we're going to do before I actually download and install the web server is generate a self-signed certificate for SSL. Now, if you follow the instructions that are actually in the NetBox documentation, you're not going to be able to access the site using Chrome. And I'm not going to deep dive into why. Let's just say that Chrome is not a big fan of the way that the NetBox documentation has you create that certificate. So for us, we're going to switch back to our home directory. Which this is my home directory for the user NB that I'm using to generate this. And I'm going to create a new file and call it netbox.cnf. I'm going to be copying and pasting this in so that I have it in the right format. Save it. And then we will issue our commands to actually generate our certificate. All right, there we go. Switch back to NetBox. All right, so now we will install Nginx. Should be another quick install. All right. Now we need to do some modifications to the default install. So most web servers, when you download them, install them for the first time, they come with a pre-installed I'm operational page. It just lets you know that the service is working. So now we're going to step through and configure that to remove the default page and replace it with our NetBox install. So the first thing we've done is made a copy of the Nginx configuration that they provided for us over into Nginx. we're going to switch over to where the installed sites are and remove that default site. Replace the default site with NetBox, and then restart Nginx. And you can see Nginx is up and running. So we'll switch back over to Firefox. We can get rid of that port 8000. Actually, we'll just do it this way. Netbox.lan. Potential security risk, we're okay with that because we know it's the self-signed cert that we signed ourselves. And here we are in our NetBox 2.9.9. Log in using admin. And there you go, you're logged in as admin, and just to verify, there is our headquarters site. So there we go. Where are we at? We're at 21 minutes, not too bad. You need a little more time if you need to build Ubuntu from scratch. Do your updates, always do your updates. Gotta have those updates. So that's it. We'll do some more videos down the line. I mentioned there's gonna be an upgrade video. I definitely want to do a video on some plugins. There's a really cool mapping plugin that I like quite a bit. I'm going to do an LDAP authentication video, integration video. That's going to help me a lot professionally. Hopefully it helps some of you guys too as well. And maybe some operational videos down the line. I'm not quite sure. But either way, there we go. It's up and working. Hopefully it's as easy for you as it was for me. And have a good day. Take care.